Hello and welcome to Wes's Angling Vlog. Today I am going to be making the first rig making video on the channel. I'm going to be making my version of the Ronnie rig, and I'm also going to show you how I set them up with the rod as well. I'm going to go to Harry's fishery tomorrow, which is a day ticket water. It's a little secret fishery in the middle of the village. It's not very well known. There's carp in there to potentially £20. So what I like to do is I like to fish 2 carp rods with light gear and Ronnie rigs. I'm going to show you how a Ronnie rig works and how I balance it out. This video is going to be a beginner's guide. I know there's probably more advanced anglers than me that could show you better, but I'll go through exactly how they work and how to make them as well. To make a Ronnie rig, you're going to need a few things. These are the hooks that I like to use. You've got Fox curved medium, which is my go-to for Ronnie rigs. They've got a good curve, which means when the hook flips round in the fish's mouth, it's going to hook into the lip. I'm going to try one of these as well. I've not tried these hooks before with a Ronnie rig, but they look like they'd be a good pattern to use for a hookup. So I'll let you know how I got on with those. So to make the Ronnie rig, I've gone through the hooks. I like to use Corder IQ 20 £. I find that works well with these 0.6 crimps. So you're going to need the crimps, you're going to need a crimping tool. I find using a tool like this helps to tie rigs, which I'll show you when I'm tying them. Pulling tool, you've got tool tail rubbers, you've got these screw swivels, which is what goes into the bait. You've got 2 Ronnie swivels. A Ronnie swivel is a swivel with a hook on and an eye. And these bait stops. You're also going to need a lighter for the shrink tubing. You can sharpen the hooks as well if you want, but I find these Fox armor points are very, very sharp hooks out the packet. And for the type of fishing that I'm doing, they're going to be really aggressive bites. They're only smaller carp. They're not going to be finicky bites, so you tend to get a good hook hold. Right, so this is a Ronnie rig that I made earlier. As you can see, that's how we're going to want the finished product to look. So I'll give you a close-up of that. So, as you can see, that's how the hook, if you can imagine, sits up in the water. That's why you need a nice stiff fluorocarbon. We're going to put a crimp here to make this loop nice and tight. And we're going to shrink tube the hook onto the hooked end of the swivel. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pass over this screw fixing over the top of the hook and put the bait stop so that this doesn't come off. On this end, we're going to thread on the tail rubber and tie a figure of 8 loop knot in this side. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make the hook part of the Ronnie rig. So what I find easiest to do is trim a little bit of this shrink tubing off, not too much, but you want enough so that it covers the eye of the hook and also this U-bend. So what I do is I slide this onto the shank of the hook, and then what I find best is to put the Ronnie swivel that way through and then slide this back down over that. Now I like a little bit of movement in in the swivel still here, so that's plenty, as long as the hook isn't going to slip off. Now what we want to do is to get the correct angle of the hook. Now that already looks about right, and then what I do is, rather than heating this over like some hot water or a kettle, just get a lighter, hold it close, and that'll shrink right up around there. And then before it cools down completely, just adjust the angle a little bit to how you want it. So that's a nice aggressive angle on there. That'll get a good hook hold. Now what you want to do is slide your screw on. And don't hook your finger like I just did. Then take it one of these tiny little stops and slide that onto the point of the hook, and then just pull it over with your thumbnail. Now, the positioning of this is really important. You need to be getting this just before where the barb would normally be on these hooks, which is about there. Obviously I use barbless. It's very, very rare that I use a barbed hook when carp fishing. It's just a little coarse water, no massive carp in there. Like I say, I'm fishing with light gear. Size 8 hooks, it's plenty big enough for the type of fish that I'll be fishing for. I find that these size 8 hooks balance absolutely perfectly with these sticky baits, pineapple lofters. Love these. I think fish really do like them. I've had good success on them. Not tried the other flavours. I just know that these work for me. And then what you do is, when you're on the bank, you just screw that into the lofter. And that isn't coming off anywhere. So there you go, and that's how it sits up in the water. And from above, the fish isn't going to be able to see that hook. And when they pull it into their mouths and then blow it out, that's going to catch. These hooks are super sharp. They catch every time. It's very rare that I lose a fish on one. Okay, so let's take that off for now and then move on to the next part. So easy as that, that's the hook part done. What we're going to do next, we're going to do the crimping. I've already cut myself some Corder IQ. Like I said, I find this the best. It works well for me. It's the perfect thickness. It's not too thick and it's not too thin. It's strong enough and it's near enough invisible underwater. You might think it looks quite thick, but you really can't see it, and I really don't think the fish mind. So we want to thread one end here through. Then we want to take one of our crimps, throw them all over the desk as well. Then we want to pass this through one of the sides of the crimp. As you can see, there's two small holes like a barrel on either side. The whole other end goes through there, and then what you need to do is pass that back through the other side of the crimp. Should be nice and tight. And then try and keep both sides separated and pull that up so that you have got a tiny loop there, but just big enough so that this swivel can move freely. So that's perfect. Leave yourself enough, like I said, and hold one end down. This is what I like to do. And then use the corresponding size crimp on the tool for the size of crimp. So let's get that in there. And then gently squeeze down the crimp across the full length. And then what I like to do, just give it a little press with the flat bits. Okay, so after you've got your line crimped there, you need to be really careful with this part. Trim the end down a touch and then burn the small end, or blob the small end I should say. Touch more, just be careful you don't melt the main line. And there you go. So that's your Ronnie rig attached. Now what you need to do is go to the other end of the rig, slide on your tail rubber, which is what is going to kick the hook link away from the lead. Now what you need to do is get the correct size in. So you can try out different lengths. I find fairly short is best, so maybe something like 6 inch. Then I'll move the tail rubber down the line. Again, just double check that you've got the right size, a little bit shorter. Then what you need to do is tie a double figure of 8 loop knot. Now, what I find is easier to tie with is one of these. So what I'll do is I'll put it through, grab the loop, bring it round. And we'll do that twice. There we go. Now, tighten it down a touch. So there's your figure of 8. You can just about see that. So there's your figure of 8. Then you need to wet the line. Use your knot puller and pull it down hard. You can grab your rig on the hook and just give it really good tension in. So really hard. Give it a really good test. If it fails, then you know that you've gone wrong in your tie-in, because it shouldn't fail. Those crimps are really strong. Okay. Then when everything's straight, just trim this end off. You can go fairly close here. Okay. There we go. That's your finished Ronnie rig. So that tail rubber pulls over the knot and you're left with that. Now I'm going to show you how I attach this to the main line and the type of lead system that I use. So if you can imagine, that's sat up in the water. Let's put our bait back on. There we go. So that's going to be sat in the water. And then what I've got on my main line is some tungsten tubing that helps weigh everything down to the bottom. The fish, like I said, the fish, you might think, oh, it looks a bit bulky. The fish really don't seem to mind. It pins everything down. It'll just hide in amongst the weed, amongst the silt. And then I've got this lead. Now, this is a really safe system for carp. I saw somebody using this type of lead system on a YouTube video. So it works so well. I can't stress how good it is and how good it is for the fish as well. So obviously, and you're never going to lose the lead unless your main line snaps. So you've got your lead here. If a fish was to take it, what happens is your rubber end here, which is attached to your main line, pulls out, and that's then going to fall off the main line. So let's pull everything back in. So, like I said, all you do is you thread the tubing onto your main line, then put your lead on. You take the insert out the lead because this is a rubber insert. It's like a really thick tail rubber that just works perfect for this. And then you slide your tubing into that rubber. So let's wet that back up. And what also happens is because your lead on take, because the lead is moving down the main line then, the fish has no resistance there to throw the hook. So you're going to have you're not going to have a fish that you're going to lose, and the fish is going to throw the hook. So let's pull everything back down, and that just slots right in to the end of the lead there because we've removed the insert. Okay, so let's pull everything back in, get everything fastened up. So that's how you set it up. Push it in. Now your main line at the end is just going to a quick change swivel. These are more than strong enough for carp. This isn't necessarily a rig that I would use for catfish. Or sorry, a lead setup that I would use for catfish even. I'd use a running lead. But for carp it's perfect. So let's push that back into the end there. And you can see what's going to happen. We're just going to put the Ronnie rig on the quick change swivel. So it's really easy to swap between bottom baits, different hook lengths. So let's pull this right down, and that can go over the top of the quick change swivel. And that isn't going anywhere. You've got a bit of movement there. And that's just going to sit on the bottom nicely with this wafter perfectly balanced up against the weight of this hook. Now, if you're using pop-ups, you might have to counterbalance these hooks, or if you're using a bigger hook, it might be fine. But I've just found that these wafters balance these size 8 hooks perfectly. That is something that is really important. You can't have your bait floating off the bottom of the lake like this. You need it pinned down, just critically balanced, so when the fish sucks up, it's really pulling into the mouth, and then when it blows it, you're gonna get a hook up. So again, that's the spinning on my hand, and you're gonna get a hook up 9 out of 10 times with this rig. Okay, so tomorrow I'll be going to Harry's, like I've said. It's a fishery in Adlington. If you follow her in, you'll see the day ticket video tomorrow. I hope you enjoy it. I hope this video has been informative. And if you've got any questions, please just comment down below. I'll try and answer them best I can. But yeah, stay tuned. Let's try these rigs out tomorrow and we'll see how we get on.